Hello there. I propose to tie a floral round motif. There is a flower in the middle. I knitted these motifs from cotton in 50 grams 280 meters, the hook is 1 millimeter. We perform the first loop. Let's tie 10 air loops. The first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, and 10th air loop. We are closing in a ring. We perform 3 air loops. First, second, third. We will knit 16 columns with 1 cape. The first column with 1 cape, the second, third, fourth, fifth, and so 16 columns with 1 cape. We tied 16 columns with 1 cape. Let's tie the connecting column. We perform 1 air loop, 2 columns without a cape, 4 air loops, 2 columns without a cape, 4 air loops, 2 columns without a cape, 4 air loops, 2 columns without a cape, tied 8 arches. We will tie a connecting column and 3 connecting columns. The first, second, and third connecting column. Three air loops, 2 columns with 1 cape. The first, second column with 1 cape. Five air loops. In the next arch there are 3 columns with 1 cape. The first, the second, and the third column with 1 cape. 5 air loops, 3 columns with 1 cape. Five air loops, so we'll tie the whole row. They tied up the whole row. Let's finish the last arch. We perform 3 air loops. The first, second, and third. 1 cape on the hook. We start the hook in the corner. We tie a column with 1 cape. We perform 12 air loops. We will tie the columns without a cape. 11 columns. First, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. The 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th column without a cape. At the base there is 1 column without a cape. We turn it over. We will tie 11 columns without a cape. First, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th. At the top we will tie plus 5 columns without a cape plus the first, second, third, fourth and fifth column without a cape. On this side we will tie 11 columns without a cape. The first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, 8th, 9th, 10th and 11th column without a cape, at the base of one column without a cape, turn over, tie the columns without a cape. One loop of the base, one column without a cape. We tied the columns without a cape at the top to round off. We will tie additional columns. The first column in the same loop plus the second. The first, in the same loop plus the second. And the third time. The first in the same loop plus the second. Then there is one loop of the base, one column without a cape. Basically, there is one column without a cape. We turn over and tie the columns without a cape. One loop of the base, one column without a cape. To round off, we will tie additional columns. One was tied up.
Here, plus one column without a cape. In the next one column without a cape, in the next loop of the base two columns, one plus one column without a cape. The next loop of the base is one column without a cape, the next one plus one column without a cape. Then there is one loop of the base, one column without a cape. They tied the columns without a cape to the end, tied one column without a cape to the base. Turn the knitting over to the other side. We will also tie the columns without a cape. One loop of the base, one column without a cape. To round off, we will tie 1 plus 1. Then 2 columns without a cape, then 1 plus 1, 2 columns, and 1 plus 1. Then there is one loop of the base, one column without a cape. We have tied the columns without a cape. We will tie a column without a cape at the base. We will tie 3 connecting columns above the 3 columns. The first, second, and third. There are 3 connecting columns above the air loops. The first connecting column, the second, and the third. Then we will tie 12 air loops on the basis of this chain to a new petal. The second petal was tied. Performing the last row, it is necessary to connect the 2 petals together. Therefore, we perform 4 columns without a cape. The first, second, third, and fourth column without a cape. Let's connect 2 petals. Counting the 4th loop. The first, second, third, and fourth. We start the hook in the 4th loop, stretch the working loop, tie this petal further, performing columns without a cape. One loop of the base, one column without a cape. We tied the second petal, made connecting columns, typed a chain of 12 air loops. We will tie a new third petal. Tied all 8 petals. Not forgetting to connect them together. It remains to connect the first and 8th petal together. Let's tie the connecting columns. Above the first column with 1 cape. The first connecting column is above the second. The second connecting column is above the third connecting column. One column without a cape at the base of the first petal. Then we will tie 4 connecting columns. First, second, third, and fourth. We release the loop, count the 4th loop, stretch the working loop, tie 6 connecting columns. The first, the second. The third, fourth, fifth, and sixth connecting column. Then we will link the next row. For the next row, we dial 12 air loops. The first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th air loop. We plant the petals in the corner. We will tie a column without a cape. Then there are 6 air loops. In the corner of the petal there is a column without a cape, 6 air loops. Three capes on the hook. We will tie a column with 3 capes. The first cape was tied, the second, third, and 2 loops together. We perform 6 air loops. Two capes on the hook. We start the hook under the column with 3 capes, grab the loop. We perform 1 cape on the second pedal. We will tie a column with 1 cape. The cape was tied, then 2 loops together, the second cape was tied and the third cape. Two loops together, then 6 air loops, a column without a cape, 6 air loops, a column without a cape, 6 air loops, a column with 3 capes. Six air loops, 2 capes. We start a hook under a column with 3 capes. We take out a loop. We perform 1 cap. On the next pedal, we will knit 1 cape, 2 loops together, the second cape, the third cape, 2 loops together. Six air loops, a column without a cape, 6 air loops, a column without a cape, tied the whole row to the end. Let's finish the last arch. We completed 6 air loops.
We perform 3 capes on the hook, tie the first cape, start the hook under the arch, grab the loop, tie 2 loops in the cape together. Then we will tie the third cape and 2 loops together. We perform 6 air loops. We will count the 6th loop along the air chain. First, second, third, fourth, 5th, 6th. Let's tie the connecting column. We perform 3 connecting columns. The first, second, third connecting column. 3 air loops, a column with 1 cape, 1 air loop. In the next arch we will tie 2 columns with 1 cape, 3 air loops, 2 columns, with 1 cape. One air loop, the next 2 columns. Three loops, 2 columns. One loop, tied the whole row. At the end of the row, we will tie the first arch. Let's tie 2 columns with 1 cape. The first column with 1 cape and the second column with 1 cape. Three air loops, a connecting column. The second connecting column, a column without a cape, 3 air loops, 1 column with 1 cape, a picot of 3 air loops. Three air loops, connecting column at the base of the air chain, a column with 1 cape, 3 air loops, a column without a cape, 3 air loops, a column with 1 cape, 3 air loops, a connecting column. It turned out picot. A column with 1 cape, 3 air loops, a column without a cape, 3 air loops, a column with 1 cape, on top of a picot of 3 air loops, a column with 1 cape, 3 air loops, a column without a cape. We tied the whole row to the end. At the end, a connecting column was made and the thread was cut. As a result, here is such a beautiful round floral motif. The wrong side is the front side.